Once again, I welcome all of you. So here I proceed with the development of this lesson. As you know very well, Charlie Chaplin was very much interested in Jackie Coogan, and he wanted to induct Jackie Coogan as a child artist in one of his movies. He had a clear idea in his mind about making a movie with a window mender, and he wanted a small child like Jackie Coogan to perform the role of a naughty boy who keeps on breaking the windows of the people on different streets. And later, the man who is the window mender will move on the same streets and mend the windows and make money out of it. So this sort of interesting point is there in the mind of Charlie Chaplin, and in this respect, he was really interested in contacting Jackie Coogan. But he became a little bit restless when he came to know that Mr. Arbuckle has already signed up Jackie Coogan, and that kind of news was also flashed in the newspaper. But later on, Charlie Chaplin came to know that it was not Jackie Coogan who was signed up by Arbuckle, but the father, that is Jack Coogan. And as soon as he came to know about it, immediately he started making contact with Jack Coogan, and he wanted to talk to the father in the respect of Jackie, and he wanted to really sign the boy up as soon as possible for the upcoming movie. Now you see what actually happens over here. If you really go through the text, you will definitely enjoy the developments over here. The father has already agreed. He was ready to, allow his child to work as an artist, especially as a child artist in the movie, which was going to be made by Charlie Chaplin. They say babies and dogs are the best actors in movie. Put a 12-month-old baby in a bathtub with a tablet of soap, and when he tries to pick it up, he'll create a riot of laughter. All children, in some form or another, have genius. The trick is to bring it out in them. With Jackie, it was easy. There were a few basic rules to learn pantomime. With Jackie, very soon mastered them. He could apply emotion to the action and action to the emotion, and could repeat it time and time again without losing the effect and spontaneity. See the kind of thing which is discussed by Charlie Chaplin with the father of Jackie Coogan, that is Jack Coogan. It is clearly mentioned over here, the view of Charlie Chaplin. According to him, a few people say that the babies and dogs are the best actors in the movies. If at all you have a child of hardly 1 year of age or so, keep the baby in a bathtub with a tablet of soap, and then you see the kind of thing that happens over there. When the child tries to pick it up, he will create a riot of laughter there, because the situational becomes very humorous and funny. According to Charlie Chaplin, all the children in some or the other form have some or the other genius. The trick is to bring it out in them. And in the respect of Jackie Coogan, what your Charlie Chaplin thought of, that this boy was really an extraordinary one. Now he refers to the basic rules of pantomime that one child artist is expected to learn. And according to Charlie Chaplin, Jackie was such a person who has already got certain skills in this respect. Jackie had the ability to apply emotion to the action and vice versa. He could definitely repeat it time and again without losing the effect of spontaneity. So here you need to know about what do you mean by a pantomime. Actually, pantomime is a type of musical comedy or a kind of stage production designed either for a family or a group of people, those who gathered for some entertainment. It was actually developed in England and is performed throughout the United Kingdom. So pantomime is a participatory form of theater, you can say, in general words, in which the audience is expected to sing along and of course with the parts of the music and the shout out phrases to the performers. But if you really see in this context, you need to understand that when your Charlie Chaplin is talking about Jackie Coogan as a child artist, here you need to take pantomime as a noun. Actually, pantomime is the art or a technique of conveying emotions, actions, feelings, so on and so on by gestures without uttering a single word, without any kind of speech. So it is a play or an entertainment show in which the performers express themselves mutely by gestures only. They don't utter a single word from their mouth cavity. Often to the accompaniment of music. And it is really significant. This music plays a major role in such kind of pantomimes. And that's why this producer and director, that is our Charlie Chaplin, wanted such kind of child artist who could do it more and more effectively and spontaneously. His observation as a director and producer says that Jackie has already mastered some of the skills and the leftover skills will be acquired by him in a very short period of time. Jackie Coogan could apply emotion to the action and vice versa, that is action to the emotion. And of course, he could repeat all that time and again without losing the effect of spontaneity. So this is the most important characteristic or the facet of the character of this boy. And that's why Charlie Chaplin was very much particular about selecting this boy as a child artist. There is a scene, already some of you have watched that movie, you may remember it. There is a scene, the kid, where the boy is about to throw a stone at a window. Now, all of you, please remember. Already some student told me that they have watched this movie, The Kid, that I circulated in the previous class. So now remember that scene. The boy, that is Jackie Coogan, as a child artist, is having a stone in his hand. And you know that he is pelting stones at the windows, breaking the windows, and followed by his father to mend the windows. See the situation now, already you may remember that. There is a scene in The Kid where the boy is about to throw a stone at the window. And in the meantime, what happens? The policeman stills up behind him, and as he brings his hand back to throw, it touches the policeman's coat. He looks up at the policeman, then playfully tosses the stone up and catches it, then innocently throws it away and ambles off, suddenly bursting into sprint. I think this is the most important scene, or this is one of the most important scenes of the movie, I would say. Those who have watched this movie, probably they may remember now the kind of spontaneous action done by Jackie Coogan as a child artist. I too really liked this particular scene very much when I saw the movie for the first time. You know, the boy is already very playful, as you know. He is very naughty. His actions are also very typical. He does not utter a single word. He simply picked up a stone and he was about to throw the stone at a window. Immediately, he realizes that there is someone behind watching him because his hand touches up to the overcoat of the policeman. He recognizes that somebody is there who is monitoring him or looking at his activities. Immediately, he changes his mind of throwing the stone at the window and he started tossing up the stone, catches it again and again, and then throws it very innocently as if there is no role of this person in throwing the stone at any window. So, when you watch this particular scene, unless you watch it, you don't enjoy it. Describing the scene over the online platform is different. But watching this kind of scene actually on a screen, as it is very spontaneously played by your Jackie Coogan as a child artist, is something really extraordinary, what I feel. So that can be, observed over here. Having worked out the mechanics of the scene, I told Jackie to watch me, emphasizing the points. You have a stone, then you look at the window, then you prepare to throw the stone, you bring your hand back, but you feel the policeman's coat, you feel his button, then you look up and discover it's a policeman, you throw the stone playfully in the air, then throw it away and casually walk off, suddenly bursting into sprint. He rehearsed the scene 3 or 4 times. Eventually, he was so sure that the mechanics, that his emotion came with them. In other words, the mechanics induced the emotion. The scene was one of Jackie's best and was one of the high spots in the picture. See here now. This is all during the making of the scene. When Jackie Coogan was being instructed by Charlie Chaplin, what is he supposed to do, how he is supposed to do, and what exactly is expected from him as a child artist. So Charlie Chaplin pointed all these minutes of the scene, explained the scene to him, and then emphasizing all the points like, hey, Jackie, you have a stone in your hand. Then you look at the window. Now you are expected to prepare to throw the stone at the window. And while doing so, you bring your hand back. At the same time, you feel that there is a policeman's coat that touches your hand. You just had a glance over the policeman. You discover that there is a policeman. Now you are not supposed to throw the stone at the window, but you start playing with the stone very playfully in the air and throw the stone, walk off the place, and then you are expected to run at full speed over a short distance. See the last word which is used here, suddenly bursting into sprint. What does it mean? Suddenly bursting into sprint means the moment you realize that there is a policeman behind you, while playing the stone, you throw the stone away and run as soon as possible from the place. So this sort of scene, which was described to Jackie Coogan, he rehearsed it for 3-4 times. Then he was very much ready. And when he performed the actual scene while shooting, that was really something extraordinary that your Jackie Coogan did. And that was one of the best scenes ever performed by Jackie Coogan. Everybody admired the scene and the kind of performance which was given by Jackie Coogan at that point of time. Of course, not all the scenes were as easily accomplished. The simpler ones often gave him trouble, as simple scenes too. I once wanted him to swing naturally on a door, but having nothing else on his mind, he became self-conscious, so we gave it up. It is difficult to act naturally if no activity is going on in the mind. Listening on the stage is difficult. The amateur is inclined to be over attentive. As long as Jackie's mind was at work, he was superb. See, this is one of the very important feature of Jackie Coogan as a child artist is being discussed by the author. He is talking about one or the other experiences at the time of the making of the movie, The Kid. And here he says, actually, when Jackie Coogan was performing in various scenes or giving his performance for a particular scene, sometimes the most complicated scenes are done by him very spontaneously and very effective. But on the other hand, there were a few very simple scenes that gave him a lot of trouble. So while monitoring Jackie Coogan as an artist, Charlie Chaplin realized that unless his mind is at work, his performance is not up to the mark or super. But whenever I realized that Jackie's mind was at work, his performance was extraordinary. In the sense, if you force him to do some act, he fails to perform. But if at all he is willingly doing and very consciously, paying attention to the expected scenes, then his performance is always super. So he became self-conscious. So we gave it up. If at all he is being self-conscious, we gave it up. But if at all he is really very interested in and actually and naturally performing some acts, his acts are brilliant. And that is what we have really observed whenever we saw him performing on the stage and while making the different scenes and the shootings of different scenes in the studio. His father's contract with Arbuckle soon terminated. So he was able to be at our studio with his son. And later played the pickpocket in the flop house scene. He was very helpful at times. There was a scene in which we wanted Jackie to actually cry when two workhouse officials take him away from me. I told him all sorts of harrowing stories. But Jackie, who was in a very gay and mischievous mood, after waiting for an hour, the father said, I'll make him cry. See now. There is the further development. Arbuckle has already signed up Jack Coogan, that is Jackie's father. But their contract came to an end. It was terminated after a while. So whenever Jackie Coogan was supposed to be in the studio, his father, that is Jack Coogan, used to accompany him. And later he also played the pickpocket in the flop house scene. So he was very much helpful at that time. Actually, there was a role that Jackie Coogan was supposed to play in the movie Kid, The Kid. And when the two officials, that is workhouse officials, they come to take Jackie Coogan away. And the scene was, the boy is expected to cry. But all the people over there while shooting the scene, they awaited almost for an hour that Jackie Coogan was not at all crying. Charlie Chaplin instructed him the scene for several times, but he was in a different mood. He was in a mischievous mood, as said by Charlie Chaplin. He was not at all crying. So when they awaited for an hour, finally Jack Coogan came forward and he told Charlie Chaplin that he will make him cry. So don't frighten or hurt the boy, I said guiltily. Immediately Charlie Chaplin instructed the father, see, you should never frighten or hurt the child. You need to convince him in order to perform this particular role. Oh, no, no, said the father. Father also said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to frighten him. I'm not going to hurt him. I'll just convince him for the scene, and I know how to make him cry. Jackie was in such a gay mood that I had not the courage to stay and watch what the father would do. So I went to my dressing room. A few moments later, I heard Jackie yelling and crying. He is all ready, said the father. See, Charlie Chaplin did not know what the father was going to do with the child in order to make him cry. And in fact, he could not see that also. Finally, Charlie Chaplin went to his dressing room. But a moment later, he heard that Jackie Coogan started yelling and crying. And the father announced, now he is ready for the scene. It was a scene where I rescued the boy from the workhouse officials, and while he is weeping, I hug and kiss him. When it was over, I asked the father, how did you get him to cry? I just told him that if he did not, we would take him away from the studio and really send him to the workhouse. I turned to Jackie and picked him up in my arms to console him. His cheeks were still wet with tears. They are not going to take you away, I said. I knew it. He whispered. Daddy was fooling. See how interestingly this particular scene is being presented by the author over here, which is the part of his autobiography. The scene was really splendid, marvelously performed by the child. But after all, Charlie Chaplin inquired with the father that how did you do all that? How did you convince Jackie to perform this role? Then he said, I did not do anything. I simply told him that if you are not going to cry and do the role properly, I am really going to send you to the workhouse. Okay? So the people from the workhouse or the officials from the workhouse will come over here. They will take you away from me permanently and you will remain there over there in the workhouse and not with me. And that's why he did splendidly. Actually, Jackie Coogan was still having wet tears on his cheeks. Charlie Chaplin went to him, picked the boy up, and tried to console him. But the child whispered in the ears of Charlie Chaplin. He said, I knew it. Daddy was only fooling me. So don't worry, I know everything. But when I got my mood back, I performed the role as it was expected from me. So this is how this small child, a very little kid, okay, who is yet to see the whole world, but he recognized the requirement of the scene. He recognized the expectation of his father and the way his father was trying to be fully. That also he recognized, and finally told Charlie Chaplin that he has identified the fact, but he did the role as expected. And this is how Charlie Chaplin has, described the kind of developments while making the movie The Kid. And here we come to an end of this particular lesson. So once again, I request all of you to watch the movie The Kid, which is available on YouTube. You can just search it. Otherwise, already I sent you the direct link also. Just touch that link. It will open up for you and watch the movie. It goes for hardly 50 to 55 minutes or so, but that is really an interesting one. And you will also learn how to really, express yourself without uttering a word, called pantomime. Okay. So here I just, put an end, and tomorrow we will have MCQ class on this particular lesson. So please be prepared and check out how many answers would be correct for the 10 questions that I asked you tomorrow. Okay. So right. Thank you very much.